published number.
Warning, the following show contains conservative posturing, radical Christian ideas, and may offend pagans, Wiccans, Islamic fundamentalists, and other unenlightened individuals. Callers and guests may be subjected to brash and offensive comments by the hosts and any other type of bullying tactics available. But that's okay. We know why you're here.
This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Tonight is Monday, February 9th, 2009.
And welcome one, welcome all to our wonderful return.
2009, baby.
That's right. That's it. It's we're late and
we have no music.
Yeah, we have no music. We're late.
This is definitely
we're understaffed. Yeah, and everyone knew about this too. One guy's sick, the other guy, well, we're not even going to talk about him. But we're understaffed. We're
underpaid.
The equipment's not working right, and half of it's all new. And it's working out real good, real good. So anyway, but we have a very good guest tonight, Dr. Len Marzulli. You can check out his website. You can see that on ours if you go to www.lamarzulli.com. You can check that out. That's on our new front page. And we hope that you'll enjoy the program tonight. And I would say you could call in, but guess what? You can't even do that because
we're that low rent tonight.
We are.
We have no music. We have no call-in line.
Are dead.
So please just bear with us. We apologize that our kickoff to 2009 is in such shabby form.
So anyway, without further ado, Dr. Len Marzulli, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me back on. By the way, that's lamarzulli.net.
.net. I apologize.
There you go.
It is on our front page at World.
I wonder what you end up if you put .com in.
Good question. I don't know.
Well,
buy this web domain, something like that.
So what's been going on since this last book, Lynn?
Well, I wrote this new book, which is actually an interactive e-book, and it's called The Alien Interviews. And what's sort of unique about it is it interviews. There are 17 people that come on the record and talk about their experience firsthand with the so-called extraterrestrial UFO phenomena. So in that respect, it's in my opinion really fascinating because these are people that, in other words, I'm not copying and pasting from other books or what other people have said. These are interviews with people who have actually experienced something. There's a phrase that I've been using on different interviews, and that is why we may disagree as to what is the cause behind the phenomena. We all have different opinions on that with different paradigms and worldviews. We can at least agree that the phenomena is real, it's burgeoning, and it's not going away. And that's kind of what it's about. 17 people, like I said before, have come on the record. Some of these people are Dr. Jesse Marcel, Dr. Roger Lear, Dr. David Jacobs, Dr. Wenger, Dr. Lynn Katai, the Phoenix Light. So it's a lot of PhDs there that come in and weigh in the alien interviews. It's not some guy out in wherever with a second-grade education. These are well-educated people that have explored the phenomena for some of them decades and have come forward and share very candidly with me in this written format, this interview, as to some of their findings. Coupled with that are people that have had close encounters of the fourth kind, in other words, face-to-face contact with entities which they at first believed were benevolent or good, and later came to believe that, in fact, these were messengers of deception. So it's sort of a mixed bag. All viewpoints are welcome, and that's why it's kind of a fascinating book. Plus, it's an e-book in the sense that it's interactive. When you download it at $6 on my website, you go to lamarzulli.net, and you download it, and it's a PDF format, but all the links are live. So as you're reading a book, let's say about Dr. Jacobs, let's say, the interview with him, you can go to his site, you can go to YouTube stuff. I mean, it's very interactive, and in that sense, it's really cool because it allows the reader just to open up to just a plethora, a vista of possibilities of study, of research, of just how far they want to get into this thing. So the reason why I wrote it is really it's a two-for. One is for the skeptic who doesn't believe in any of this, but has never really studied it. So this is a challenge, and that's why I got as many PhDs as I could possibly find to bring into the book. It's a challenge to them because, you know what, guys, it's not swamp gas, it's not a flock of geese, it's not the planet Venus, and it's not a frickin' weather balloon. You know, we've heard all those excuses. You know, you can't throw out some of them, fine. Some of these UFO experiences and sightings are exactly what I described. But others, for instance, UFO Hunters last Wednesday on the History Channel did a wonderful expose of a 2007 sighting over the English Channel. That was seen by 2 different pilots in 2 different airplanes, and also in one of the airplanes there were many passengers. Most of the people refused to come on the record, but the one pilot and a couple who were together, all flying together, all came on the record, and this disc was between 1 mile and 2 miles wide. This is a mothership, folks. This thing is huge, absolutely huge. And it came fairly close to the plane. It was also seen on English radar. So not only do you have multiple witnesses in 2 different planes, but the thing is shown up, or the actual craft shows up on radar. Just phenomenal. You know, and it's funny. Well, maybe it's a weather balloon. Well, there were no weather balloons launched, and the prevailing winds were in the other direction. 1. 2, this is over the English Channel. So it's like literally out in the, you know, it's out in the open ocean, but it's not weather balloons, it's not a flock of geese, it's not the planet Venus, it's not swamp gas, it wasn't some sort of a reflection or like a lenticular cloud. They don't form over the ocean. They're usually formed over land masses, particularly in mountainous regions. I mean, they debunked everything. These guys saw something. And that's why I keep going back to that one phrase. While we may disagree as to what the phenomena is, the cause behind it, we can at least agree that the phenomena is real, it's burgeoning, and it's not going away. We need to start talking about it without the tongue-in-cheek ridicule, the little green men nonsense, and realize that, for instance, in the UK last year, UFO sightings doubled in a year. Doubled in a year. So like I say, burgeoning. Things are moving up. It's ramping up. There's an acceleration, if I can use that word. And I believe it's headed towards something. So that's the new book is called The Alien Interviews right now. If you buy Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural for $10, which is actually $2 cheaper than Amazon, I believe, you get the Alien Interviews free for a limited.
Oh, wow. That is a steal.
It's a smoking deal. Look, we know people are hurting. I mean, let's face it. The economy is tanked, and people don't have a lot of money. So that's why it's like, you know what, I'm still making money off this. It covers my expenses, keeps my lights on, but it gets the word out and gets the information out. So both books for $10. Go to my site, lamarzulli.net. It's all right there.
Oh, very cool, very cool. How do you think that the world has changed now with the election of President Barack Obama?
Well, I mean, we've inherited this, $1 trillion debt, and he's right. I mean, 8 years of the Bush administration has led to the tanking of the economy. I mean, Wall Street was left to run amok, and we can all finger point and say, well, it all began with the Clinton administration. Please, I mean, how far back do we have to go? The bottom line is Bush was, in my opinion, completely inept in economic policies. I mean, the things that he allowed to have happen. Barney Frank's another guy you can certainly point to with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, coming out in the summer telling us that Fannie and Freddie were solvent when, in fact, nothing could be further from the truth. The housing crisis is what it is. But interestingly enough, on the Drudge Report this morning, they commented that if with this, it's actually the stimulus package and everything else and all the bailout money comes up to about $8 to $9 trillion. You could basically wipe out 90% of the mortgages in this country. I mean, that would turn the whole thing around overnight.
Well, why do you think? And I hate to butt in with a little politics, but why do you think that the federal government didn't set this up to alleviate all this bad debt, as opposed to actually, as opposed to what they're doing with it, golden parachutes and such? Although Obama proposed today that anyone that takes the federal incentive package can't make, I think, over half a million a year as a CEO.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot of particulars to it, and economists, and the Republicans voted it down, the Democrats voted it in. I mean, and it's like at this point in time, we can't be partisan on this thing. We got to really look at what is going to work. In my opinion, if you relieved Main Street, if you wiped out all the mortgages, instead of spending all this money on on federal programs, if you took it right down to where the people are, there'd be dancing in the streets tomorrow morning.
Well,
are you kidding me?
I heard a statistic the other day that if you were to give it to all the people that are currently registered for unemployment, that you'd be looking at checks to the tune of about $27K for each individual.
Well,
I mean, I don't think it's a great idea to be just throwing out that kind of money willy-nilly to unemployed people here in this country, but I mean, that puts it in some perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there is no answer to this thing, and the country, unfortunately, has become more socialistic and is headed into socialism.
You know, I really wasn't buying it at first either, but the more and more I see people interviewed on the street, I definitely see a polarized populace when it comes to this issue. As far as federal funding, the nationalization of specifically the commerce.
Fannie and Freddie, certain banks, automobile industry. I mean, what's next? You know, it's crazy.
Well, the federal government has set up GM now. They're a lender. I mean, that's mainly where they made their money when they were selling automobiles. But now they're legitimately a financial lender. And with the okay of the federal government and the federal bailout money.
It's weird. Are you guys aware that Iceland, the entire government of Iceland, collapsed about 3 weeks ago?
I was not.
Riots in the streets and government collapsed, and Mexico and Pakistan may follow suit.
Well, what I want to know, I want to shift gears and get back on topic here.
Sure.
But how does all this play into the end times, to the things that are going on? Do you think this is all part of the setup to get everyone on the same page?
Well, I mean, it's so multi-tendril. This is why I'm working on this new book called The Acceleration. I keep using that word. It's so many levels to the thing that it almost your head starts to spin. Like, for instance, when you study this guy who's called Maitreya, about 28 years ago, about 26 years ago, Maitreya came on the scene, full-page ad, L.A. Times, New York Times, London Times, and a paper in Germany. Okay, the Christ is now here, the Imam Mahdi, the fifth Buddha. I mean, all this stuff, right? And the Messiah for the Jews. Sure. Full-page ads. I mean, this guy caused a huge uproar, and this is all from Share International. Benjamin Creme is the spokesman for that. I'm actually supposed to interview one of their spokespeople this week. We'll see how that goes for my news magazine. But again, we'll see how that goes, whether they'll actually come on the record and do an interview. They're kind of elusive. But one of the things I asked today when I talked to Share International, and this will tie right back into the alien interviews. And before I say that, let me state this: that Maitreya was picked up in the Wall Street Journal. There was an article about Maitreya linked to the UN in the Wall Street Journal about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, it's like, what the heck? What are we looking at here? I mean, the Wall Street Journal, tied with Wall Street and the whole deal. They're talking about Maitreya, this elusive, enigmatic, so-called messianic figure who's supposed to telepathically communicate with all the inhabitants of planet Earth at the same time. That's what the 1982 newspaper boasted, and of course nothing ever happened. So now Maitreya is back, and what's interesting, and this is where it ties it into the UFO thing, that apparently Benjamin Creme first contacted and had contact and was given his mission in the backseat of a limo, and in that limo, apparently, allegedly, was an ET who communicated with Creme and told him all about Maitreya and the Ascended Masters. So there's this whole link up with Maitreya to the whole UFO thing, the whole disclosure movement. And in Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, I say very succinctly that I believe the coming great deception and the Luciferian endgame, the alien gospel, is being promulgated. I mean, the Jerusalem Post last week ran an article about the Raelians. There's about 70,000 of these guys now, and this is former race car driver Claude Vorlehorn, who had contact with the same sort of a being that Benjamin Creme did. Little 4-foot guy, black slanted eyes, the ET, the whole thing that we've been acculturated with in movies and X-Files and all this stuff, and was communicated. And they changed his name to Rael, and the message that they gave him, and I'm going to quote now from these alleged aliens, were, "We were the ones who designed all life on Earth. You mistook us for gods. We were at the origin of your main religions. Now that you are mature enough to understand this, we would like to have contact with you." So it's like when we start, look, I do this 24/7. This is what I mean. I'm just immersed in it. Get lots of email, do lots of radio stuff, lots of interviews, and I'm just amazed on how the points of correlation between something as bizarre as Rael and seemingly unrelated as, let's say, Maitreya, and yet we see that the source behind both of these movements allegedly is the same source, the so-called extraterrestrial. With Benjamin Creme, that's who we had contact with, that gave him his mission, that introduced him to this being called Maitreya. With the Raelians, Claude Vorlehorn, who they changed his name to Rael, same exact thing. Had contact with a small 4-foot extraterrestrial being. I mean, it's exactly the same thing. And as Jacques Vallée points out, are we in fact looking at messengers of deception? Why should we believe what we're being told just because some other entity tells us this? And it's fascinating to me to watch all this stuff come down. So let me add one more thing. When we add, let's say, Maitreya and the Raelians with the economy and the fact that last week, I think it was President Merkel of Germany, Sarkozy of France, and former Prime Minister Tony Blair of Britain, all calling for some sort of a one-world economic system. I mean, this is unbelievable. You know, this is unbelievable, and it's pointing towards, in my opinion, this time that ancient scriptures talk about more than any other time, which we have just collectively called Armageddon. But it seems like we're moving towards that. Added to that, the instability of the Middle East, the idea that Islamic terrorism is alive and well, as we see in Mumbai, as we see with the new insurgents in Afghanistan. The whole region is very unstable, that eventually when they start to move troops out of Iraq, will this further destabilize the area? With the current war with Hamas and Israel, Hamas declared today that they're really only resting, and there really is no ceasefire. I mean, it's just doublespeak. It's just, and they actually won this particular portion of the war. It's just crazy. Hezbollah now has decided to use international terrorism to hit Israeli targets throughout the world. And of course, our good friend Ahmadinejad in Iran is constantly saber rattling and calling death to the Zionists, death to America. They chant that every Friday. So, I mean, I could go on. I'm just touching on some.
Well, speaking of Hamas, have you been paying attention to Israel's race for prime minister?
Yeah, it looks like Netanyahu's going to get it.
Well, it does for now, but it appears maybe the right's being split over there by an insurgent new right party, and it's actually given some headway to the left of center party there.
Well, we'll see. I know one thing: if Netanyahu gets it, it'll be no messing around with that.
No, I understand. I mean, he'll probably send F-16s over there to bomb facilities in Iran.
There has to be some kind of a strike, and the Iranians know this. I mean, the Iranians are not stupid. I mean, they know exactly what they're looking at. The Russians have thrown in their chips, so to speak, with the Iranians. I mean, they're backing the Iranians. They sold the Iranians the S-300 anti-missile system, which can knock pretty much anything the Israelis have, via the USA.
Well, the Israelis should definitely be ready for blowback if they were to conduct such an operation, because I don't think they'll just sit idly by like Iraq did in the early 80s.
That's my point. And see, this would beg the question, would this, in fact, suck the Russians in to coming into the fray, which is exactly what that ancient prophecy that I've written about in Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, the Ezekiel 38 scenario. Are we, in fact, looking at that? Are we ramping up to that? In my opinion, yes. What touches it off, I don't know. Is it the fact that the Israelis go up against Iran to try to knock out the nuclear things, or do the Iranians talk to all their cronies and go, we need to do this now, why we still can? So, who knows? It's all speculation, and no one really knows how it comes down, but it's interesting to watch the players line up on the stage, which is exactly what was written 2,600 years ago, and now we see it, happening in our real time. I just find that fascinating. Very sobering, but fascinating.
I agree, definitely. Tell us about your monthly newsletter that you've got out.
Oh, it's a monthly news magazine, and we just changed our format. Apple came out with a really neat program called iPages, and so we're using that now. This month was, I think, like 28 to 30 pages long. The interview was with Patty Heron. Fascinating interview. He's the author of the Nephilim and the Pyramid of Apocalypse, and he gets into some really fascinating scenarios and explanations with the Great Pyramid of Giza. Really a fascinating interview that he did, and it's called the PP&S news magazine, and PP&S stands for Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, the abbreviations. And there's articles in the political, the prophetic, and the supernatural part. Usually, there's a lot of comments by myself. There's like a little intro. Maybe I'll write a commentary on a particular article and then link, right? So you'll see maybe a paragraph of the article, and then there's a live link which you actually go to right off the news magazine, and that comes in a PDF file. It's $1.50 a month. It can keep you abreast of all those three seemingly unrelated points, but they do correlate: the political, the prophetic, and the supernatural. And it's we're growing. We get new subscribers every day, lots of positive feedback with the news magazine, and it's really fun to do. It's becoming one of my pet projects, actually.
No, tell us. I'm looking at the cover of I'm assuming the latest one where you talked about the interview with Patty. It's in the middle. It's got a picture of the dome. It says, "Will the third temple be rebuilt?" Can you tell us a little bit about that article?
Well, that's a really interesting article because again, it's really fun being on all these different shows and having people email me from all over the planet sometimes, And one person shot me an email, and we were talking about the temple, and he had a link to a site, and on that site is all the marble is already cut for the third temple, and it's just sitting there, just waiting to be used. And not only that, but the garments and the high priest, and or the whole priesthood, people are being trained to do this, to carry out the animal sacrifice. So it's just a question. Again, it's not a question of if this is going to happen. It's a question of when. And we know that to rebuild that temple on the Temple Mount, if the Jews tried to do it, all hell would break loose, and we're looking at World War III.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Dome of the Rock is on that. In fact, the Jews are not allowed to set foot there. Only in certain areas at certain times. They're not allowed to pray on the Temple Mount. It goes on and on. But at some point in time, we know that there will be some sort of a deal struck, and the Israelis will be allowed, the Jews will be allowed to rebuild that temple on the Temple Mount. That's prophetic. That's one of the things we look to. And it's fascinating that 60 years ago, let's say before when Israel wasn't existing as a nation, none of this was in play. None of this was in play, which is so fascinating when as a guy who researches this stuff, when we realize that 60 years ago there wasn't even a thought of rebuilding a temple, and now it's actively there. The blocks are cut. The garments, the utensils, everything is set up and ready to go. They even have DNA testing because apparently this gets really weird. That the descendants of Aaron, the Kohanim, I think they're called, actually have a traceable part in their DNA, which a geneticist can look at and determine thousands of years later. Yes, this person's a direct descendant from Aaron. He's capable of being a priest. That's just crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Don't you think it's possible, though, that the Israeli government themselves uses biblical prophecy to manipulate geopolitics?
Well, here's the deal: the Israeli, and that's that always people. I get hit with that a lot. Well, aren't they just doing this because they know the prophecy? No, they don't know the prophecy. That's what's so crazy about it. They don't know the prophecy. They don't believe in the prophecy of the New Testament. And
they're Old Testament folks.
I'm sorry. What?
I said they're Old Testament folks.
Well, basically, yeah. It's in Daniel, but where it really gets into it is in Revelation. And Daniel's been a closed book. Without the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel is really hard to figure out. But when you put the two together and you overlay them, then at least they kind of work together. And even Ezekiel and Jeremiah add certain dynamics to those books. But see, they don't believe that. They don't. They're still looking for the coming of the Messiah the first time, where Christians are awaiting the second coming. They're not aware of that scripture for the most part. When you say, "Hey, what do you think this says?" When this prophecy says, "They will look at him whom they have pierced and mourn for him as an only son," Christians look at that and believe it's a direct prophecy of the second coming of the Messiah, and I believe that. I believe that's a direct prophecy from the Old Testament. Discussing the fact that when they will look at him whom they have pierced and mourn for him as an only son. That collectively, the nation of Israel and this, this hot button issue with like who put Jesus to death? Give me a break. Okay, the Romans carried it out, but they yelled, "Crucify him! His blood be on us and on our children." I mean, that's the blood curse that the house of Israel brought upon themselves. And look, I'm not anti-Jewish in any way. I am so pro-Israeli, it's ridiculous. I get a lot of hate mail because of my stance for supporting Israel. I'm called what was I called the other day? I was called a Nazi Zionist.
Hey.
I
Wow.
thought that was sort of mutually.
I thought the Nazi,
whatever.
the Third Reich was done.
Wow. I'm still reeling. This is a great book, and it did keep me up when I read it. Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural. If you don't have a copy of it, please log on to lamarzulli.net and pick up a copy. That's LAMARZULLI.
And get yourself a freebie with it.
Yeah. I mean, you can buy the.
What's the other title?
It's 2 for $10, right?
Yeah, 2 for $10. The Alien Interviews.
Yeah, conversations with people who experience UFO contacts.
That's it.
Now, when did this one come out?
Well, it's out. I mean, the Alien Interviews came out right before Christmas, and it's selling well. But it's eventually we might put it into hard copy because we've had a lot of requests. And even if we do that, there'll still be a link that you can go to. So as you're reading the book, if you want to do the links, there'll be a link page on my site with those links per chapter, because I still want to make it an interactive book. That's the whole point of it. It's sort of cutting edge, But we may go to hard copy because there's some people who don't want to sit and read the whole thing off a computer. It's only 140 pages, so it's not like you're wading through thousands of pages or whatever. It's 140 pages, but the interviews, we actually cut about 3 or 4 interviews out of the book. It was about 200 pages at one point, and we cut out a lot of stuff because what I really wanted to do was make it as hard-hitting of an expose as I possibly could, make it very poignant. And I think we did that. I think, myself and the editor that worked with me on it were able to, make the book sort of an eye-opener, and it's a page-turner. I mean, I was one person that I did an interview, in fact, last night with, she was saying that she basically read it in one sitting. I mean, just couldn't turn away from it. And the interviews will do that because the interviews are absolutely riveting. When we hear Dr. Jacobs wax eloquently about the abduction phenomena, and he's talking about he's having done this for close to 4 decades now, and he realizes that the breeding program is very ambitious, and the so-called extraterrestrials have spent a great amount of time. When Jacobs gets in here, I mean, he's so convincing. He's afraid, he's fearful of what this breeding program is. Dr. Jacobs and I maybe differ as to what the cause is, but we both agree that the breeding program is very unsettling, very unnerving. We're right on the same homepage with that. And when the reader begins to discover that this so-called alien abduction phenomena, despite what some of these people on some of these television shows talk about, well, it's just sleep paralysis. As Jacob points out, all of this has been discussed decades ago and already been debunked. I mean, it's not sleep paralysis. And some people do get sleep paralysis, but that's not what the abduction phenomena is. And one of the questions I asked Dr. Jacobs, which kind of blew me away, is, when I asked him, I said, what was it like when you first realized that the phenomena was real? And Jacob says, and I quote, I walked around for 6 months going, oh my God, 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 until he finally kind of got over it and came to grips with it. And, if that's at all possible, and of course it really isn't. And, now he's been doing this. And I guess the other part of his interview, which just blew me away, is, and he just says this so eloquently, is when he realized that he's interviewed everybody from like other physicians and, just all walks of life, bankers and teachers and construction workers. I mean, just all walks of life. And the experiences are the same. They're telling him the same experience that he's heard over and over and over again, that of these small gray alien creatures taking them in the middle of the night, floating them through walls and windows and up into the belly of the ship, and cold metallic tables, and just the whole abduction phenomena. And it's it's one thing if there was only 1 or 2 of these, we could write it off. But apparently, according to some statistics, there might be as many as 1 to 2% of the population in the United States may have been abducted, which is very sobering if that's true.
That's crazy. I mean, it really is.
Absolutely.
And I know that you can get that online, limited internet time offer for $5.99. You can buy it right now and start reading it. That's at lamarzulli.net. And LA, we're going to take a little short break here.
Okay, great.
If any of the listeners wanted to I guess ask any questions, that's what I was going to suggest. You can email us at worldoftheunexplained@gmail.com.
Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, the phone lines are just dead tonight. So anyway, regardless, LA, hang with us just for a minute. You're listening to World of the Unexplained. We'll be right back. And we're back. You're listening to World of the Unexplained tonight. Our guest, L.A. Marzulli, author of Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, The Coming Great Deception, and the Luciferian Endgame, as well as others on his website, The Alien Interviews, which you can pick up as an ebook for only $5.99 by going to the website lamarzulli.net. And, Lynn, we've got a question from one of our listeners tonight. This is from Ben in Lynchburg, Virginia. I've heard that some alien abductions have been thwarted by rebuking the alien in the name of Jesus Christ. If the guest has heard of this before, could he go into detail about it or give examples of people doing this? Thanks.
Interesting. It's almost like a paid question. It really is. Unbelievable.
It sounds to be. It seems to be about the right tone, though, out of Lynchburg.
Oh, come on now. Ben listens to our show all the time.
That's Falwell territory.
He's a good guy.
I mean, that's just an amazing question. Yes. One of the men who actually weigh in the book I interviewed is Joe Jordan, and Joe is was a MUFON investigator, and when he was beginning his study, he started getting into the abduction phenomena, and what he found out, much to his surprise, was that certain people were stopping the abduction phenomena by crying out to Jesus, why this thing was happening, which was just fascinating. And at the time, he didn't have let's say a Christian worldview that he does now. He became a believer actually in his search of trying to figure out what was going on with the phenomenon. In other words, he wasn't afraid to explore it, and he began to talk to other researchers, and this was all kind of swept under the rug. Well, yeah, we've got some of those people too, but we don't want to talk about it. So there's like almost a cover-up within the UFO community about certain people who have allegedly stopped the abduction phenomena by evoking the name of Jesus. What's interesting is at this past year's Roswell conference in Roswell, New Mexico, 2008, Joe was there, one of the feature speakers, did a great presentation. He's got a DVD of it, and I've seen it. He sent it to me. But towards the end of the DVD, he brings out about a dozen people who are there as witnesses to give their testimony that they literally stopped the abduction by evoking the name of Yahshua, or Jesus, as we are more apt to call him today in the Greek. But I just find that fascinating. In fact, I had an email today from a gentleman who sent me pictures from Florida of what I believe is a recent episode of a Chupacabra. Chupacabra means goat sucker in Spanish, and he had goats in a 5-foot pen of a fenced-in pen with not only chicken wire but chain link, and something got in there and sucked all the blood out of the goats, and there were 2 puncture marks in the neck. I mean, the classic Chupacabra thing. All the meat, everything else was just left there, but there's no blood, no tracks, and all just the same. We've heard about this and seen it. Well, in the same letter as I got to interview this man, he came on the record telling me that one night he was about to go to sleep, or he was sleeping, and for some reason he awakened, but he was paralyzed, and he kind of looked over, and there was a figure next to his wife in the bed, leaning over, and he was able to say, literally, the blood of Jesus. And as he said that, the figure popped his head up and looked at him and ran out of the room, ran out, just kind of disappeared type of thing into another dimension. And the moment he did that, shortly after his feeling came back, the paralysis was gone. Now, I keep hearing this over and over and over again, and it's not like there's a magic word in saying Jesus. These people have a relationship with Yahshua. They're born again. Their spirits have been in some way regenerated, and that's what started Christianity, almost 2,000 years ago. I mean, that's what started it, almost 2,000 years ago. And it's become social or engineered and made this. It's become churchianity, which I'm not really in favor for. I'm broad brushing here, but it's not what the experience is about for the most part, at least in the first 3 centuries. And the moment it became a state religion, it got all screwed up.
Oh, you hear about this stuff like that, rebuking these things in the name of Jesus. But, my question is, why are they there in the first place? If you're indwelt by the Holy Spirit, isn't that something that's going to keep these things away from you?
No, not necessarily.
Is this something that, I've spoken with John Zaffis and a lot of other, so-called demonologists.
Right.
That, John's a good friend of mine. As a matter of fact, he's Roman Catholic. I'm not going to fault him for that. Anyway, but, we get in conversations from time to time. But, he believes that Christians can be possessed, and that's an argument that we have time and time again. And I say the only way that could happen is for there to be an open door there, an invitation almost.
Well, I would agree. I don't think a Christian can be possessed. I mean, I really don't. A person who is truly born again and has the spirit of a living God in them. And I've heard all these, we're 3 compartments and all this stuff, baloney. I don't buy it at all. I don't buy the argument. I'm either kept and the spirit of a living God is within me. Now, I can be demonized, okay? I can be certainly oppressed by demonic influences, absolutely.
Sure.
But possessed, absolutely not. I disagree.
Well, my question then is these things, this thing that was bending over his wife, I mean, wouldn't there be something there to stop them besides him waking up and saying, the blood of Jesus, etc.?
He awakened and he realized he was paralyzed and he saw the thing. That tells you that there's something at work,
sure,
perhaps,
sure.
Right? Why did he awaken at that particular moment? Maybe, again, we're unseen world, spiritual warfare stuff. Maybe an angel awakened them. I don't know. Maybe he was prompted by the Holy Spirit. Again, I'm speculating here. I mean, I don't have all the answers to that particular event, but it is interesting. Look, there were Christians apparently in Topanga Canyon who were driving in the car. They saw a UFO in front of them, and this thing apparently there's a huge beam of light that was shown over the car. And these guys were terrified, and they felt like they were being drawn into the ship, and they began to evoke the name of Yahshua, the name of Jesus, and the phenomena stopped. Now, we keep hearing that over and over and over again from different people. There's no collusion between the witnesses, just like Dr. Jacobs. And again, the UFO community needs to look at this, and not in a religious way, not to say, oh, you have to all convert now. That's not what we're saying. We're talking about spiritual entities, and that's the point I make in the alien interviews, that what we're looking at are spiritual entities from another dimension, and the physics in that dimension supersede this one. What those abilities that these entities have appear to us are supernatural abilities, but to these entities, to these beings, it's just par for the course. They're imbued with these certain gifts, these properties. That's just how they function. But the physics behind that is a physics that supersedes the physics in our world. For instance, when they float an abducted person through a wall or through a window, I mean that's impossible. From our POV, you can't do that.
Sure. From
our physics here. And the point I try to make in the back of the book, when I weigh in the alien interviews, like 30 pages of me ranting about what does it all mean. And I weigh in and basically say, look, guys, I think we're looking at interdimensional beings, just like Jacques Vallée tells us that perhaps these are not extraterrestrial, they are in fact interdimensional. I was just in the little break that we had. Went back to the Benjamin Creme site, maitreya site, and he keeps talking about the etheric vibrations that of these entities, that they vibrate at a higher vibration than we do. I mean, just all this New Age gobbledygook. But it's basically if I'm reading this correctly, they're entities which he has no idea really whether they're benevolent or malevolent. He just assumes that they're all good. For no reason at all.
Sure.
In fact, he just broad brushes over, glances over, or glazes over the abduction phenomena, saying, "Well, that's not really happening. No one's really being abducted. It's all a false flag operation by, to discredit to the aliens." And I'm saying, excuse me, that's a bunch of baloney. That's an outright, fabrication on your part. That is so disingenuous, and it negates the work of Dr. Jacobs, Joe Jordan, and others who have, look, I talked to some of these people. Karina Sables comes in on this alien interview book, and she's been abducted since she was 5 years old. It's not a false flag, and why Creme doesn't want to get into it, because it completely throws a wrench into his whole belief system that they're benevolent creatures here to save us and help us and all this stuff, whereas Dr. Jacobs believes the phenomenon is a nefarious one, a malevolent one, and he doesn't feel good about what he's looking at. And Karina Sables, again, she's been abducted by these entities, and she hates it, absolutely hates it, and she can't stop it. And I haven't talked to her recently. Maybe she's finally found the Lord, so to speak, and made Jesus has a relationship with him, and maybe she stopped the abduction phenomena. But when she came on the record, she hadn't. In fact, she had an experience where 9 people witnessed the abduction.
Wow.
There was trace evidence. So pretty bizarre stuff.
No, if you want to speak with Dr. Marzulli, you can do that via email tonight, worldoftheunexplained@gmail.com. I apologize, our phone lines are down. Dr. Marzulli, you talked earlier about the Chupacabra thing, and I know that you've spoken about Mothman before, and I even see a blurb here from an interview excerpt talking about the Mothman, seeing the Mothman, an eyewitness account. Do you think that all these creatures are related?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do. In my worldview, in my paradigm, I've looked to the connections, the connectivity between, let's say, the Chupacabra and the Mothman entity. I mean, and first of all, for a quick thumbnail sketch for new listeners who haven't been following us on our shows that we've done together, the Mothman, first of all, is a misnomer. This creature appeared in Point Pleasant, West Virginia between 1966 and 1967, was seen by hundreds of different people, different locations, different witnesses, all over the map. And, the reporter who was writing about the Mothman at the time, the Batman series was real big. And so the reporter was cooking up the story and nicknamed this thing, or gave it the name, the Mothman. It's just nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. As one of the men that I've interviewed, Lawrence Gray, who comes on the record in the alien interviews, and this interview is riveting because this guy was there. He saw this entity in his room at 2:30 in the morning. It was described, or he describes it in very similar terms as the other witnesses who saw this entity describe it as this winged creature standing well over 6 feet tall. The head sunken down into the shoulders, that the body had some sort of like a robe on, but there were wings, and they were sort of like bat wings. And this Lawrence Gray describes this entity as the manifestation of wickedness in his room, overwhelmed with a feeling of wickedness, of evil. And he began to say, the blood of Jesus. And as he said it, the creature, this entity, began to disappear, began to dissipate, and then moved back into the dimension from which he came from. Now, I'm not making that up, and if you got a problem with that, go talk to Lawrence Gray, but this is what the man saw, and this is how he was able to overcome the entity that he came in contact with. You see, the problem that we have in the United States is we've been so over-churched that we forget we can't see the forest for the trees anymore. Let me give you an example. We've heard this story probably a gazillion times for those of us who have been in church. When you're sitting in church, everybody has to be quiet. You're in a pair of, decent clothes, at least when you were a kid or whatever. When you're an adult, maybe, and especially now it's gotten more relaxed. But, stained glass windows, and there's banners and flags and incense if you're a Catholic, and candles, and just all this nonsense. And it's a imposing building, and there's maybe 500 or 300 or 1,000 people, whatever, the size of the church. But it's this collective thing, and then the Grand Poobah gets up there and starts to tell us a story, right? And we all sit in rapt silence and listen, because this is supposed to be something sacred, and it is sacred. I mean, I'm not demeaning that at all. The Scripture is what it is. I mean, in my opinion, it's the inspired Word of God, but it's a guidebook. It's a guidebook into the supernatural. Here's the story. It's after the resurrection. Jesus has been killed. He's put in the tomb, crucified, put in the tomb. It's now 3 days later. The apostles are all up in the room. They're all freaked out. They're sitting around the table. All the doors and windows are closed, and Jesus appears to them, which means that he just came through a wall. I mean, he did.
Sure.
He just appears out of the middle of nowhere in the room. The apostles immediately freak out. They're all cowering with fear. They think it's a ghost. First thing he says is, guys, you know, he belays their fears. Guys, touch me. It's me. Hey, it's me. I know I just freaked you out. Now, I mean, you know, on some levels, it's like when someone would appear that way, there is like gotcha. You know what I mean? There's like a gotcha aspect of it. It's almost like scare tactics. Gotcha. You know, I mean, he could have done it perhaps in a more gentle way. But no, there's a lot of drama there. He just pops into the room, everybody freaks out, and then as they're touching them, you know, they realize that it's him. And then what does he do? Remember, it's all guys in the room, right?
Yeah.
For the most part. First thing he does is go, hey, what do you guys got to eat? I mean, it's such a guy thing. What do you guys got to eat? And they sit down and they have a meal together. I mean, and that's, I mean, there's humor there. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not only is there humor, but we see that we're dealing with another dimension and another physics that we know nothing about. And that's what I mean. We've heard the story so much, and we become almost immune to it. And we fail to see the humor in it, one, and we also fail to see the unbelievable supernatural aspect of the story that's taking place in the story. And doesn't that mirror, and I actually use that in the book, I think, doesn't that mirror the abduction phenomena where, you know, entities are floated through walls? And this is exactly what Jesus does. He appears out of nowhere in the room, which is exactly, it mirrors what happens in the abduction phenomena. Are we looking at a correlation between Jesus and what he's able to do as God and these lesser beings or these entities, which I would now describe as fallen angels? And in my opinion, there's a definite relation because they come from that unseen dimension, which we know nothing about. And that's why they do and move in the way that they move.
Well, isn't the term for these things actually EBEs as opposed to ETs?
Over again?
The term for these creatures, are that earthbound entities, EBEs? Is that the proper term in the community?
An EBE is an extraterrestrial biological entity.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an EBE.
Okay. So what is a domestic unknown entity, or not unknown entity, but a domestic unknown terrestrial?
Like?
Say like, I don't know, a Loch Ness Monster, Leviathan, something like that.
Well, I mean, that opens up a whole different chapter. I mean, no one really knows whether Nessie is or isn't at this point. And I just watched a really interesting show. I think it was on the Discovery Channel, where fairly recently they were looking for what they thought might have been the carcass of a dead Nessie or dead Loch Ness Monster. But so far they haven't found anything. You know, it's with all those programs that you watch it for the hour, and at the end of the hour they have no evidence. But interestingly enough, a couple of people, in fact, one man on camera had photographed two shapes swimming up the loch. And it wasn't an anomaly. I mean, there were two shapes next to each other swimming sort of in tandem up the loch. So, you know, what's that? I have no idea what that is. You know, people have been trying to figure out that whole mystery for decades now.
Now, you know, it's just the whole idea of the alien phenomena, I suppose, as it has increased over the past 40 years. Do you think that this is the increase? I know you point out in Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, you believe this is part of the end game.
You know, you're cutting out here. What was that?
I'm sorry. I know in your book you point out that you believe this is part of the end game.
Yes, absolutely. I believe that the hold on, I'm being distracted here. Give me a second.
Sure, no problem.
But no, are you alluding to revelations and that maybe UFOs are playing some part in that, J. Scott?
I'm sorry?
That maybe the UFOs are playing a part in the facilitation of revelations? Is that maybe what you're alluding to here?
Facilitation of maybe the deception that comes after, and I don't know if me and the doctor here disagree, but I tend to follow that this would be a deceptive tactic that could be used to show where all the people disappeared to after the rapture.
Well, no, this is exactly what I write about in Politics, Prophecy, and Supernatural, the coming great deception of a Luciferian endgame. This is the Luciferian endgame. This is the coming deception. The fact that, remember that article, a snippet from the article with Claude Verlehorn and the aliens? The idea, this is literally the Alien Gospel 101. It could have come right out of my book, that we are your progenitors. We created you from early man. We created all life here. We're really the gods that you worshipped thousands of years ago. We're back now at this critical juncture. I mean, isn't Benjamin Creme and Maitreya saying exactly that same thing, that Maitreya will come and bring peace in this time of crisis and all this nonsense? I mean, there's no collusion between the two groups as far as I know. But this is what's interesting. Both of them hail from like a UFO encounter with these little, gray aliens that we've now become acculturated with the big black eyes that are, on 7-Up commercials, for crying out loud, or Ever-Ready battery commercials. It's just ridiculous. It's everywhere. But I believe that this is the coming great deception. Here's why. Imagine one of the guys I interviewed for the Alien Interviews, Ricky Soro, and we've talked about this before on the show, but he's one of the Stevensville witnesses. He was there in Stevensville. He saw the craft with his own eyes. This thing flew over him in broad daylight. He looked in all directions, and he could not see the edge of the craft. He estimates it like 2 to 3 miles wide. I mean, he's not even sure. A mile wide, 2 miles wide. I mean, I just doubled the size of the thing. But it was huge, and it noiselessly flew over him a little bit above treetop level, moved away from him, started to turn at a 45-degree angle. So now it looked like a disc on its edge, and then just flew off and kind of disappeared. I mean, that's a life-changing experience. Can you imagine yourself, and I've been challenging people lately to do this, figure out what a mile is, Take 2 points in the horizon. You got to go someplace where you have a good vantage point.
Maybe North Dakota or something.
Well, I mean, I can do it here, in Southern California pretty easily, and depending on where you are, you may have to go, to a higher location to look down, and then, but you figure out what a mile is, and then move that up in the air, and then we start to get a realization of how big a mile-wide craft really is. The thing is huge. I mean, it's overwhelming to see something like that. And I think when they appear, look, Benjamin Cred's saying they'll appear. The aliens are saying these things are going to appear. Blossom Goodchild on the 14th of October was blogging, oh, yes, we're going to, huge craft is going to appear.
She got shot down, though.
Over the English Channel in 2007, at least a mile-wide craft was seen. We already got into that, so I'll just reiterate it. Just, touch it real quickly. 2 pilots, everybody saw this thing, was on the radar. I mean, the phenomena is real. It's there.
You don't think they could potentially be classified military aircraft, though? But, potentially in an R&D stage?
Well, not because it just disappeared.
It just disappeared?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't mean it's not classified technology, though.
Well, I mean, for an aircraft like that, look, that's always a possibility, okay? That's always a possibility. The English Channel one, I don't think so. I don't think we've got mile-wide craft that literally has like a cloaking device and just disappears.
So you believe that these aliens are our progenitors?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that that's the alien lie. That's the alien gospel. That's
Chuck, read the book.
Well, I haven't read the book. That's why I'm asking the author this. I just wanted a little clarification on the point.
I'm sorry. Thank you for holding my feet to the fire. I want to make that real clear to the audience. No, I'm saying exactly the opposite. I'm saying that the alien gospel, that they were our creators, is the lie.
So that is the deception then. So there are no Homo sapiens living on Earth-type planets across the universe.
Bingo, panspermia.
So I've got to ask you then, do you believe that we're the only intelligent life in the universe, or do you believe that there are other colonies that they've seeded throughout the universe?
I don't know. I don't know any of that. And that's all speculative, and we don't know. I mean, look, the universe is a huge place. To think that we're it seems to be awfully small-minded. We've all heard that argument. On the other hand, the argument I would make goes back to C.S. Lewis's argument in his, because he's pondered the problem, and he's written a space trilogy about it. Out of That Silent Planet, Paralenda, That Hideous Strength, the title of all 3 books. And C.S. Lewis postulates basically that if there was life in the universe, that they wouldn't be separated from the Creator. I mean, the whole passion play that we're doing here, people have to understand the whole point of the cross is to bring us back to the garden. That's the whole point of it.
Sure.
You know, most people don't, it's obfuscated, but that's the point of it, to bring us back into the garden. That's what the cross does. That's what the blood of Jesus does for us. It brings us back to the garden, if we believe it. If we believe on him who was sent. If we don't believe it, it doesn't do us a bit of good at all. But at some point, according to the prophecy, history as we know it will end. The second coming stops the clock, so to speak, where, okay, passion play over, now it's, and this is after the Battle of Armageddon. You know, if you start reading the judgment stuff that happens in Armageddon, it's nasty stuff going down here. I mean, the Antichrist is alive running around on the planet. The Great Deception has taken over, and then these judgment things start happening where a third of the water is burned up, the grass is burned up, a third of the trees are burned up. I mean, it's some really nasty thing. You know, at the end of the Armageddon thing, you basically need 1,000 years to clean up the planet. So to get back to the point is, if there is life somewhere else, I believe that they would know, let's say, you know, call it God, because that's what it is. They would know him. They would have communion with him. They would have intimate relationship with him because there was no fall. Get what I'm saying? There'd be no, you know, like we had on this planet supposedly.
Well, you know, I'm gonna change gears a little bit here to keep in line with the alien thing. But what do you think of people like? And I'm sure you're familiar with him. The seer, I call him seer, and I laugh about it. Prophet Yahweh. You familiar with this guy?
I interviewed Yahweh, and I mean it was hilarious. I mean, the guy is operating, in my opinion, with a familiar spirit. He needs deliverance, and I don't say that lightly. He even says that he hears voices in his head. I'm not making this up.
No, we interviewed him years ago as well.
Yeah, okay.
I'd wondered if you'd, I guess.
I think he's a familiar spirit, and the familiar spirit gives him a certain amount of power at certain amount of times. But the last time he said that there was going to be a UFO and everybody see it, nothing happened.
I agree. I saw his newest rendition there before the election. It was he had the Obama sign. I'm not kidding. They had like a big.
I followed that. No,
you saw that?
Right.
It was. He said that Obama would be the best elected person to be able to meet and greet with the UFO, the aliens, and you know, kind of get it going on.
It doesn't surprise me. I bet he and Reverend Wright have hung out at some point or another. No, I'm serious. They're both ex-Nation of Islam guys. I mean, and the idea that isn't Yahweh the in Hebrew the name for Jesus?
That's
or for God. Is that correct?
Yahweh would be, you know, Yah would be an abbreviated form of that.
He used
Yahweh.
Hebrew, and he's claiming to be I guess the basic translation would be prophet God.
Were you here with us for that?
Yeah.
Okay,
I remember seeing the YouTube video after the interview, and apparently he's only been able to do this once. I'm not really willing to lend too much credence to it. It seems like a brilliant stroke of luck.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was out in the field with a news crew from Las Vegas, and you know, he went out and did his little prophet Yahweh thing, and they danced. See, here's the deal, and this is what people need to understand. This is why I keep going back to that book. It's not some old dusty book of rules, and it just drives me crazy how it's been so misused and obfuscated for so many years that people, you know, I'm not reading that thing. It's a guidebook into the supernatural. That's what it is. It's a guidebook into the supernatural. Look, the Egyptian, right, when Moses goes up to the Egyptians, right, the Egyptian Pharaoh has a group of magicians with him, okay? They're there. Soothsayers and magicians. They've got power. The same exact plagues that Moses brings, they duplicate. Get what I'm saying? Yeah. They duplicate it. Moses throws his staff down, becomes a serpent. The Egyptians, magicians,
they can do it too.
Staff down, they become snakes. I mean, we're looking at stuff here that, you know, today, if that happened, it's not David Copperfield's crap. I mean, it's really happening. I mean, they knew these people, the magicians, had what I would call familiar spirits. When we look at the sacrifices that some of these ancient cultures did, which was human sacrifice. When you think of Molech and what the Mayans did, there's power from that. There's power from that human sacrifice, which are used in satanic rituals. See? And this is what they're operating in. They open themselves up and they get a certain amount of power. Just like Prophet Yahweh, in my opinion, is operating in a similar paradigm today. Not nearly as potent as the Egyptian magicians did, but it's similar. Just like Blossom Goodchild. She has what I would call a familiar spirit. That's what she has. And it lies to her all the time, but she can't discern what the
what's
truth
true
is
and what lies.
isn't. What's her litmus test? Why should she believe anything this thing says to her? But she's opened herself up to it. It's too late now.
Oh, you would think after the first 2 dozen times she would have, learned her mistakes.
There's a chilling book. It's Enticed by the Light by Beckham. Enticed by the Light. And this woman was heavily into the New Age stuff. I mean, really big time. Transcendental stuff and meditated and spirit guides. And she really opened herself up to these spirit guides. And, she went on astral projections and, just the whole deal. Just the whole Shirley MacLaine ride, okay? And at some point she decided that, okay, I've had enough of this now and I'm going to go pursue something else. Well, guess what? The spirit guides laughed at her and said, we're not going anywhere. And the rest of the book, which is about 3/4 of the book, is her trying to deal with and get rid of the entities. And it's chilling, and it's incredibly sobering because it took her a period of about 2 years to really get rid of them before they finally stopped manifesting.
So now how did you get rid of them?
Well, she became a Christian, and she renounced them, but she was still tormented for a period of time. Even though she renounced them, it was something that happened gradually. And there were a lot of people there that didn't know how to deal. Unfortunately, there weren't a lot of people who knew how to deal with what she was dealing with. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
This is years ago. If she had done it now, in this day and age, 2009, there are people who know how to deal with this stuff and probably could have helped her get through it. Look, when I became a Christian, which is 28 years ago, a very similar circumstance because I was involved in the New Age, and I went through. It took me 2 to 3 years to get through what I got through. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It was like spiritual warfare 101. It was really, really intense. Really intense.
What were you into?
Well, I had a guru. My third eye was opened. I saw light, heard music, tasted nectar. One of the Mahatmas communicated with me telepathically. Spirit guides, vision quests, Carlos Castaneda stuff. I've always been a seeker since my girlfriend died when I was 18 and she was 16. And that led me on the quest, and not till I was 30, and that was 28 years ago now. So, I've been a strong Christian, completely immersed in this worldview for 28 years. And, having gone through all the other disciplines, I know that there's literally no comparison between them. Absolutely none.
So is there a fine line that maybe you define between people that are adepts that have the sixth sense and people that are just plain mentally unstable?
Well, the people who have a sixth sense, first of all, that can be literally like a spiritual gift, but it needs to be brought into alignment. And unfortunately, most people get twisted with it and wind up, telling fortunes at carnivals or something, which is crazy, right? But it could be, and it can be, a gift, let's say, that could be used in a spiritual way if they would bring that into alignment with. And I'm not talking about church alignment. I'm talking about alignment with Yahshua or Jesus and biblical scripture, and understand that, okay, they've been given a gift. For instance, there's one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit, right, which says the discerning of spirits. Well, what do you think that means? What is that gift? And how many people are using that today? There's a gift to discern spirits. Now, that's unbelievable. And a person who has a sixth sense, what do you think that gift might be used for? To discern spirits, whether it's malevolent or benevolent. So, I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. I mean, this is right in there. It's 2,000-year-old, manuscript. It's right in there. Most people sit in the church, look at that, and just, I have no idea what that means, and turn the page. Again, it's a guidebook into the supernatural. It's a guidebook into the stuff that's manifesting today, and it helps us if we embrace it, if we take it in, if we study it, if we understand, who's behind it. And again, the whole idea of the cross and the blood of Jesus and how that brings us back to Eden eventually and all that, then it begins to make sense, and we start looking at the prophetic messages and what's happening on the planet today, and all of a sudden it begins to make some sort of sense for those of us who study and travel on this thing.
Sure.
Well, one last question before we let you go, and I know I believe I'd asked it to you before, but I don't remember the answer. Have you seen one of these one of these UFOs?
Have I seen one?
Yes.
Yeah, I was about 12 years old, 11 or 12. I was at Boy Scout camp, Camp Horseshoe in Rising Sun, Maryland, and the four of us, we were four of us Boy Scouts, and we were taking a shortcut to get back to the camp. In fact, I went online and I looked up Camp Horseshoe, and sure enough, it's there. And they have a map of the camp, and I was able to pinpoint on the map of the camp exactly where we were when we saw it. Okay, and I did this fairly recently, about a couple of months ago. It was kind of interesting because there's the old road of the camp, and here's where we were camped, and there's this little ravine, and right in that ravine, when we looked up, we saw it. We were taking this shortcut back to lunch through this little ravine, boulder-strewn ravine, and clear blue sky above us, beautiful day, and the four of us, I'm the last kid in the line, and the lead guy goes, "Wow, what's that?" And the other two boys go, "Yeah, look at that." And I go, "Where?" And they go, "There." And I look, and off to my right is just a silver disc, the classic silver disc, just hovering in midair noiselessly. And we're going, "Wow, look at that." And we probably watched it for maybe 15, 20 seconds, and all of a sudden it just shot straight up into the air. I mean, straight up. In a blink of an eye, it was gone. And we ran back. We saw a UFO, all excited and everything. And by that night, by 5 o'clock dinner that night, the other three boys denied that they had ever seen anything. They were just making it all up because of the ridicule, because of the fear of being ostracized, and all the dynamics of those two negative experiences. They just recanted anything that they had seen, and I didn't. I refused to. I knew what I saw, and it was like, for me, it was like my first lesson into herd mentality. How people will, deny what they see to stay part of the group. And isn't that what we see today with the whole phenomena?
Sure.
The ridicule and the ostracization, like when Dr. Lynn Kataya of the Phoenix Lights talks about that in the alien interviews, and she's discussing that whole point, how people were very reticent. Same thing with Whitney White, who comes on the record from the Stevensville Light. She's a reporter in the area. How many people were reticent, didn't want to talk about it, afraid of being ostracized, ridiculed, job loss. Same thing with the pilot over the channel, an UK English Channel episode. One pilot did come on the record. The other pilot would not comment on it at all, and the other plane would not comment on it at all. And so we see the same thing going on. This is like I was 11 or 12. I'm now 58. The same ridiculous attitude is taken with this phenomenon, where it should be an open discussion of what we're looking at. And that's why I write what I write and blog about it every day, and go on shows like yours to try to tell people that this is the coming great deception that was prophesied 2,000 years ago. It's beginning to manifest. The phenomena is real. It's burgeoning. It's not going away. And if you want to find out more, you can pick up both books for $10 on my website, lamarzulli.net. You'll get Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, which is, about 220 pages of just hard-hitting material. It weaves in the political, the current landscape with ancient prophecies and then supernatural events that are manifesting. And then, of course, the alien interviews, 17 interviews. Get both books for $10, and there you have it.
I got one last...
I have a signed copy here to Jay. Hope this keeps you up at night, L.A. Marzulli. And it did, by the way.
Very nice. But I have one last question I've got to ask you, somewhat in jest, but somewhat seriously, too. Do you think there's a possibility that our new president, Barack Obama, is an extraterrestrial, and he's sending out, I guess, code through our television broadcasts?
Oh, my gosh.
across the universe or our galaxy.
No.
He's not Aurelian. He's not an ET.
Not at all. I think he's a man who really believes, who's entrenched in his own belief system. He believes what he says. I mean, he does. He believes it. And I frankly, look, I don't agree with his politics at all. I'm not, one of the first things he did was sign federally funded abortions overseas, which sure. I find that just an incredible heinous act, which is a whole of a discussion. But he believes, he says what he believes, and you can see it. I mean, he really believes his ideology. I mean, that's what it's all part of that persona that we see, and it's real to me. And so I applaud the man for that. He's also very articulate, very hands-on. I mean, he just did a news conference, flew to Indiana. He believes it. I mean, he's a true believer in
and his own propaganda.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely. So
well, no, he has a deep religious conviction as well, and I think that's what our guest is maybe alluding to.
I'm sorry.
No, the Barack Obama, our 40, what is he, 44?
44, yeah.
That he has a deep religious conviction, and it's authentic.
Well, it's a conviction. I don't know what it's really founded on. But
I thought maybe you were hinting at that. Maybe it was a lot more authentic than our last president.
You were reading into that, Chuck.
Yeah, I think you're reading into that. I mean, I'm not sure what his core belief system is, and I'm not sure what it's grounded on. I mean,
socialism.
Yeah, well, I mean that's where he's going.
Well, he's just picking up the ball where George Bush left it.
I didn't vote for him. Anyway, Lynn, thanks so much for being on the show. We hope to have you back.
I really enjoyed it.
All right, thanks so much. Have a good night.
Yep, you too.
Take care. And that was Lynn Marzulli, author of Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural. What'd you think?
Interesting guy. I mean, I've met him before.
Yeah.
And he's definitely got some interesting stuff to say here, and he seems to be up on his geopolitics and international relations.
Yeah,
which is cool. I mean, most
of your guys that delve into this aren't.
He has a conspiracy theory aspect to it, UFO aspect, world politics aspect, religious. I mean, you got 4 or 5 different angles going on there.
Good stuff.
It's called cross-collateralization in marketing.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yes, it moves product.
How do you like the new site, Chuck? The new front page.
Is this here that we've got up on the screen currently?
Yeah. This is the. Have you not seen this yet?
No, I haven't had a chance to check it out.
Just step over here real quick. Yeah, well, that looks good, doesn't it? The lines and
it's pretty clean.
It's very clean. That's what I want to do.
It's not all just
hodgepodge.
Not even hodgepodge. Just almost like a computer exploded onto a server or puked onto it.
That's WOTU. So,
that's
cleaning it up.
That's slick. I like the color lavender.
Yeah.
What made you choose that one?
That was with the template I used.
I don't care what CD is in this. We need some music to play this thing out. It's the first one of the year, and we're gonna leave it on a note like that. We can't do that.
Oh, we've still.
I don't even care.
We've still got like 12 minutes.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, then I'm struggling for nothing here.
It's all right. But yeah, I wanted to tune out a little early though to with our guest to give us some time to talk to our listeners and see see what's going on. It's been a while.
Unfortunately, we can't speak with them.
No, we can't
because
we can via email.
Oh, have you checked the inbox?
I've been checking it periodically.
Has it just blown up?
And no, it's still just we had the one question and it's just sitting there right now. So if anyone wants to pop in with a comment or anything, worldtheunexplained@gmail.com, and it just sends it right away, right to us. Like a little
faster
gift.
than the speed of light. No, it's not really, but
no, it's like a little gift. Just pops up. We know it's there.
Yeah, it shows up on Jay Scott's fancy BlackBerry. Now I'm delving into Trent territory here.
Oh man, and Trent can't be.
And I nearly knocked over the microphone. I'm in prime form.
Next thing you'll knock something off of the table over there, and bounce up against that wall. I mean, or you'll fumble with something and drop something, or yeah.
But no, where I was going with it is that it alerts you with by playing the MP3 of La Cucaracha or something. I don't know. Isn't that a Trentism, pretty much? That seems like I was no. No, I don't apologize.
You're,
sorry, Trent.
Yeah, it's okay. Trent's come off the cuff, man. You sound like they're too thought out.
Really?
Yeah, sorry.
Too cerebral.
They are.
The thinking man's jokes.
But, we're going to try to do some new things with the show, keep the guests coming. We need to get back our callers. Obviously, it would help if we had phone lines for
if they could place a call to us.
Yeah, that would help.
Yeah, we'd be more than halfway there.
I know, right? But and we're also toying about with a station out in Arizona again, different station. We may be on the radio waves out there again for those of you who enjoyed listening to us out west without the having to get the podcast. So we'll be talking about that in the upcoming weeks as well.
It should be good news.
Oh yeah, definitely. But as it stands, we're gonna get some T-shirts made up. I think that'll be kind of cool. What do you think?
WOTU T-shirts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I've got a couple ideas for you, man. But I'm sure you want to maintain the majority of the artistic vision going into. I was thinking just basic black and whites, man.
What do you mean?
Just a black and white shirt, sort of like you see for a lot of these like pro audio products, a lot of like guitars. Strings, cymbals, stuff like that. Zildjian, Marshall, Fender, just a white on black, white screen printing on black, maybe with something bold and italicized. WOTU,
Yeah.
Lightning
You
bolts.
spend too much time at work, Chuck. But whatever. There's ideas there. Anybody's got any ideas, they can email them to us. We'll take them into consideration before we make a print run. And we'll have them in all kinds of sizes and shapes. For all of our listeners, are probably multiple
We could go
sizes and
tie-dye,
shapes.
man. I don't think you'd be too down with that.
That's just kind of gay.
It's too hippie for you.
It is.
Too left of center.
Yeah, it is. It's too crunchy for me, man. I gotta have something less crunchy. You would wear it.
I don't know. I used to work in a tie-dye shop a number of years ago, and even when I worked there, I never made myself any tie-dyes, nor did I wear any.
But if you did wear those, people wouldn't look at you funny. You fit that.
I just blend in. I don't know. I don't know about all that,
man. You've got the long hair and the beard. They're like, oh yeah.
Well, if I conformed to the stereotype, wouldn't they look even more?
I don't know.
That would be my feeling.
I think you should start wearing polos and and slacks. Yeah, that'd be kind of weird, don't you think?
Weird.
Yeah, for you. I mean, just polos and slacks all the time.
All the time?
All the time.
I mean, I could go down. I'm down with it.
You'd be the GQ man.
I have to take a trip by, I won't name any names of any department stores, but, a nice men's clothing store. We'll just leave it at that.
But, in the upcoming weeks, the site's going to be going through a lot of changes, and we'll be updating periodically. The old shows from 2008 that, I think we hadn't added anything since, April or something?
I think there were probably about a year's worth of shows that still aren't up.
We'll be throwing those up, and
we're going to put old D. Clements to work, and we're going to lock him here in the studio for about 2 weeks.
No, we're not.
No food or water.
We'll throw those up in no particular order. We're going to keep these new ones though coming at a regular pace. That way, we'll at least stay on top of that. What do you think of that?
What, staying on top of the podcast? That's a novel idea.
Well, no, I mean the new ones. We'll just keep shooting these new ones out, so people have the new ones, and then floating the ones from 2008 up, from time to time. Just
intermittently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that working.
We never did a best.
I mean, you're talking about a major amount of material, just hours upon hours. You probably got days worth. Honestly,
I'm sure
of archived.
I'm sure easily.
Radio material there that it probably does go on for days.
No, you're probably right. Yeah.
Load it up and just sit back for a nice federal holiday on a 3-day weekend.
24/7.
And you'll get caught up.
Yeah. That's awful.
Sorry about that.
Well, we get new listeners to the show, I'm sure, every few weeks or so, and, they've never heard it before, and they've got all this material to go back and listen to. I found us today on YouTube.
Us.
Someone has been taking it, and I'm cool with whatever you guys do with these audio files.
It is copywritten material, however.
But, I'm cool with people, sending it out free to everybody they want to, because, they're available free at our site, worldtheunexplained.com. But
as long as you're not putting them into Cool Edit or something and jumbling them all around to make us all sound homoerotic.
Yeah, that
Jay Scott's all good with it.
Yeah, basically. So anyway, but you know, I saw that they had put all these. It was like in YouTube, so it had like a picture of whatever, and then it would have our audio interviews and snippets. I'll show it to you at the end of the show tonight. I'll show it to you. You'll be like, oh my gosh,
that's funny.
Just weird. But yeah, so I mean that's cool. We don't mind. We take it as it comes. You know, we're there for everybody.
It makes me wonder who's out there doing that.
I don't know, kind of weird, but you know, hey. But one thing I was thinking about, you know, I'm like, since we're already on YouTube,
was it previously archived?
Yeah,
material.
Yeah,
oh, it was.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so it wasn't somebody there with like I don't know, a tape recorder or a CD burner, some program that was doing our unarchived stuff and putting it up. I thought that might have been the case for a second. That must have been a hardcore fan to have gone through that kind of trouble to put it up on YouTube for us.
Before we even did it. Yeah. These guys are never going to get these up. I'll put them on YouTube with a picture.
I'll record every episode live so I can upload it to YouTube.
You know, they might be, you know, I've never even thought about that.
Do you think that there's a possibility
somebody
that
out there that recorded these things live? Oh, God forbid. And stuck them out. I never even thought about it. Really? Wow. Yeah, that's scary. That's a scary thought, Chuck.
Yeah, for sure. Think all the stuff you can't edit out of there that somebody's recording live right now.
Thanks so much. The liberal left, I'm sure they're there. But anyway, yeah. So we're gonna be going into, you know, getting some shirts made up. We're changing some stuff around. We're gonna make it a more fun show. But I was thinking, you know, one of the things we had talked about before was going on some of these trips together, and you know, just taking little weekend trips and going somewhere where there's some kind of paranormal craziness going on. You know, what do you think about that?
That sounds awesome to me, man.
I think it'd be even better though.
I think we got a number of ones just in our backyard here that we wouldn't have to expend a whole lot of petty cash.
Well, no, what I was
thinking, you know, a whole lot of gasoline or infrastructure to do.
What I was thinking though is I could take with us my camera, the camcorder,
and then upload it to YouTube.
Yeah, man, we could have our own little.
So all the listeners can see all our ugly selves in action.
In action, yeah, going around to these places. You know, what do you think? Yeah.
No, I'm down with it. I'm down. I've got to have license to block all my own shots though. That's. It's a no-go if I don't get that. That's a deal breaker.
You know, we'll all watch and edit together before we throw the final up. But you know, I don't know. I think that'd be kind of neat. Little 5 to 10 minute videos once a month of us going to some new little crazy excursion out there. See what we get.
I'm down. I'm down. We'll need to bring the crew out there though. It can't be
It can't be me and you.
Skeleton crew like we got going on to here tonight with no phone line and no music and oh my God.
Still no music. Yeah, it's about that time anyway.
Is it really?
It is about that time. We've got a couple minutes left here.
Well,
but you know,
damn.
Any ideas that any of you have out there for the new show, please email them to us. World the Unexplained. We got another email. Great show, guys. Glad you're back. I'm totally going to buy Mr. Marzulli's book. Hey, there we go. That's kind of cool.
Right on.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the 2 for 1 while you're at it.
Yeah, get the 2 for 1. That's the best way to do it.
I mean, you can't beat that.
No, that is a good deal.
Those are paperbacks, right? Those aren't ebooks.
Well, I think the one is the ebook.
Okay, so you get the ebook for free if you order the book for $10.
I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to go there now and look.
That's interesting. We probably should have clarified that with the author when we had him on here, so that we don't have a bunch of angry listeners shooting emails back at him.
It's here on the site. It says here, if you buy the soft cover, which I have, which is Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, you get the new ebook for free.
Okay.
So
that
you get
makes
both
sense.
for $10 plus postage and handling. Yeah.
Very good.
So you're kind of satisfying both because you get the ebook right away. You can read that. And do you hear that static?
Yeah, I'm hearing it now. I don't know what that's all about.
I don't either. Anyway, but you get the first book right away, or the ebook right away, and that kind of gets your gratification there in sync. And then, you know, a week or so later, the other book arrives in the mail, and you're good.
Like I said, you can't beat that with a stick, man.
That's right. So, and
Not even the ugly stick.
Not even the ugly stick. 'Cause the original price on this paperback here, I'm looking for it.
$109.
No, I don't.
No.
See it. I don't see it. Do you see a price on that?
I think that MSRP, they definitely jack it up, but no, there's an ISBN on it, but I do not see where the publisher has marked that.
Well, there you go. But anyway,
it's free.
Still, though, I mean,
no, don't disregard that last statement.
Two books for $10 you can't beat. So check that out at lamarzulli.net. And guys, we'll see you next week with another special edition of World of the Unexplained. This is Jay Scott.
And this is Chuck Browder coming back at you for the year 2K9.
2K9, that's right.
Yeah, can you believe it? It's another decade next year.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened to Omni Sound either. Everything's kind of changed this year.
I don't know. Maybe they got bought up by K-Tel.
I need to... That's horrible. But I'll have to find out what happened with Omni Sound. But until then, guys, this is Jay Scott, your only JD DJ on this show, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to have to come up with another catchphrase now.
Why not?
I've used the same one all these years.
Yeah. Why not, man? Contemporize.
Anyway.
This is Chuck Browder dropping science at you at 64,000 kilobytes per second.
Until next time, guys, have a good night.
Buck.